What's up, golf friends? This is Jim Colton, and this is the Driven Golf Podcast. I'm here with the super producer, Joseph K. What's going on, Joseph?
Hey, Jim, not much. What's going on with you, sir?
Yeah, we're live streaming here to an audience of thousands, I'm sure. Yeah, this is a big one. I have to thank you for pulling all of this together. So this is episode 28. We have the reigning College Player of the Year, Freshman of the Year from Auburn, Jackson Koivun, and the coach of the defending champions, although he doesn't like using that term, last year's national champion, Auburn Tigers, Nick Clinard. This is a huge, huge get. So let the listeners know how all this came together.
Yeah, so we met Koivun and Clinard at the U.S. Open this year. Sorry, not U.S. Open.
Next year.
Next year's U.S. Open, yeah. So the USAM this year. I'm getting ahead of myself here. That's a future pairing to look out for. So yeah, we got to play a practice round at Hazeltine. Luke did, and I caddied for Luke. It was great. Just getting inside the ropes with, Jackson, who's historically had one of the best college seasons of all time. Just started talking to Coach a little bit, and it was actually his idea. So as much credit as I have been getting for this, I've got to dish it right back to Coach, because he was like, casually, we were walking from the 10th tee, and he was like, you should have JK and myself on. Or no, he was just like, you should have JK on. And I was like, all right, let's do it. So that's how that all came about. But yeah, right place, right time. And what a start for JK's collegiate career. I mean, it's just unbelievable to see what he's done so far. And you'll see in this episode how he goes about his business. And he just, to summarize it, he keeps it simple. So there's a lot to be said about that.
It's pretty fascinating. I think, actually, Jackson Koivun, I think very much under the radar. I mean, we're talking about probably one of the best years of a freshman since Justin Thomas. Like, this is kind of what we're dealing with here. Like, one of the best college freshmen in the last 15 years or so. He has 17 PGA Tour U points, so 3 more. And he could, with another year similar to last year, he'll be on the PGA Tour potentially next summer. Yeah, he's just had a fantastic year in Auburn. I mean, their record really might go down as one of the best college golf teams of all time. I think once the dust settles and people really kind of soak in, you think college golf is probably as talented as it's ever been. And they just simply dominated the competition, especially in the spring. Really just amazing run. It's interesting getting to know some of these college coaches. They all have different personalities and strengths, and they're all great. But like Coach Clinard has this real laid back, like quiet confidence. Like you said, JK keeps it simple. Coach Clinard, I think, is just like, trust the process, trust the culture that they've established, and it's working. They're getting recruits. They got Billy Davis that started there as a freshman, and he did real well in the last tournament, and they're just super deep. So I know they were preseason number 1 this year. I think Oklahoma's surpassed them in the most recent poll, but Auburn's got to be one of the favorites going into the spring for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of young golfers, we're sitting here talking about another week in golf, and I just watched another PGA Tour event. And of course, I had to explain to my wife, look at those kids out there. Look at those kids playing. I know those kids. So do you want to tell us and tell the listeners who we saw on the PGA Tour this week?
Yeah, so at the Black Desert tournament in Utah, we had there are a few amateurs, but 2 juniors, 2025 high school seniors from Utah, Bowen Moss and Kihei Akina, guys that we've seen on the circuit and been following them, guys that they can absolutely go low. Kihei at the Terracotta this spring shot a course record 62. And then came very close to pulling that thing out. And I think, speaking of USAM practice rounds, did you play with Bowen last year? Is that right?
Yeah, at Colorado Golf Club. We were paired with him. So yeah, that's where I met him.
Yeah, so, and Bowen can make birdies in bunches too. I mean, these guys are really good. Kihei's going to BYU in next fall. Bowen's going to Arizona State. I know his dad's a friend of the program, so just shout out there as well. So that was really cool to see. We like to see these juniors have success, get these opportunities. We'd love to see more and more of it. Kihei came very, very close to making the cut, and the cut line just moved at the very end against him. But all in all, a great and fabulous experience. And the other thing I wanted to point out is, I'm a lefty. I track the lefties. Matt McCarty, who won that tournament, was just a recent Korn Ferry graduate. He got the 3-win promotion to the PGA Tour and then wins a PGA Tour event. He's now in the top 50 in the OWGR, so I'm assuming that gets him into the Masters and everything else going into next year. So it's awesome. I think this ties very closely into our angle of attack segment with Andrew, where we talk about the college golf recruiting landscape, everything that's going on with the roster limits and all the disruption to the system. Yes, there's a lot of change happening. There's a lot to be on top of if you're a player or parent in trying to navigate that. Andrew gives really good advice. The thing is, not everybody's Jackson Koivun. Not everybody has this rocket ascent to the PGA Tour. Like, his path seems pretty clear at this point. You look at Matt McCarty, who went to Santa Clara, had a good, but not an All-American career. Just hit lightning in the bottle. It seems like it just keeps steadily improving. And what you're seeing is he has his tour card cemented for next year, and he's a PGA Tour winner. I mean, it's just fantastic. So I think there's a message there. First of all, like, go lefty. The second thing is everybody's path is different in this game. So don't get discouraged if, your dream school is not reaching out to you. Like, maybe your path is slightly different. And I think if you just concentrate on the things you can control, concentrate on your development and progress, good outcomes will happen. So in any case, this is an awesome episode. Joseph, I appreciate your help, getting this going, but I hope everyone really appreciates having, two national champs on the podcast episode, Coach Clinard and Jackson Koivun.
Well, look who we have here joining the podcast. Jackson Koivun and Coach Clinard. What's going on, guys?
How you doing?
War Eagle.
Welcome. War Eagle, that's right. Welcome to the podcast, the Driven Golf Podcast. You guys may not know much about our little humble pod, but we've had quite a few guests, but this is definitely like top of the mountain right now. So I'm really excited that you guys could join. Right off the bat, I mean, we've got to jump into just like this whirlwind you guys have to be coming off of from last year. I mean, I was looking at the statistics. It had to be one of the craziest seasons in college golf history. I mean, your record against the SEC was unbelievable. So right off the bat, like, Jackson, I mean, your season, like, coming in freshman year, like, all those awards, I guess my first question is, like, did you see this like heater coming out of junior golf? I mean, I know you're playing elite AM stuff, like, just kind of open question, like, looking back, like, reflecting on all this, are you pretty surprised with how the year went? Or are you like, no, I kind of thought that was going to go that way?
Yeah, I mean, coming into college, I tried to have little to no expectations. I was a pretty highly ranked junior and was hoping that would kind of correlate into college golf, at least crack the starting lineup. That was the kind of the main goal coming to Auburn because we were so deep. And after that, just kind of playing good golf, keeping my head down and putting in the work, and kind of results followed after that. And it was a real, like you said, it was a real whirlwind, kind of went by fast. Then all of a sudden you're sitting in May at the national championship and you've had a great year, and you have an opportunity of a lifetime to put it away and cement it in stone national championship.
Coach, you've been coaching for a couple decades, right? And
Thanks.
I mean, I've been coaching. If you didn't see, I just posted the Golf Digest Best Young Teachers thing. I had to post. This is my last time because I'm going to be 40 next time, so I'm off. But I mean, you've had some success, but I mean, with what happened last year, what would you necessarily attribute that to relative to your average or the normal season that you've had? And do you think almost like a lot of things just had to break your way at the same time? Because that was a pretty crazy season with all the wins, and even like how deep, like Jackson just said, the team was incredibly deep.
Yeah, we had a lot of depth, but I think it all starts with culture. I mean, it starts with the connectivity these guys have and how much they care for each other, and how committed they are to each other, and how they just basically had a shared vision. And I'm just a true believer when you have a shared vision, you have a greater purpose. And, they played hard for each other. They played hard for the brand, that Auburn brand, that AU on their shirt, that AU on their bags. And ultimately, I think they had no personal agendas, and they were just really just enjoying each other, encouraging each other, inspiring each other. And we've obviously have some good breaks go your way, and the ball bounces your way too to win a national championship. But these guys they were just so young and joyful and enthusiastic, and they just didn't get caught up into too much of the statistics, and they just went out and played good golf, and they just kept getting better. And that's something we're constantly. I mean, I know Jackson and I talked about that today for about an hour between Coach Williams and I. We talked about expectations and how to deal with those, because obviously he's going to have a different set of expectations now than he did a year ago this time.
That's funny that you bring up, you're jumping ahead, because my expectations is my second. Jackson, you kind of smiled because are you smiling because of your bad break against the flag at nationals? Is that why you're like, maybe we got some good breaks, but that wasn't a good break?
No, I think that one bad break was worth it, because karma came back and bounced my ball off a TV tower from going out of bounds and saved us getting into finals. So I think it was worth it.
Good point.
That's great.
Fair point.
Yeah, gosh, that was. I remember watching that, going, like, you guys are just staring it down. It's like, what a bad break. But hey, I mean, that kind of stuff happens. I spend a majority of my time with competitive juniors. And I think the main thing that everyone always says to me is, how do I become more consistent? Whether that's, in my certain skills or just from tournament to tournament. And so I think, Jackson, to you, looking at your year, and even like going back to junior golf, apparently you've been incredibly consistent from event to event for the most part, especially last year. I mean, what did you have, like 9 top 5s? I mean, that's the definition of consistency. Yeah. So I just overview, like, where for you does consistency come from? When did you start noticing that you were like fairly at the top of leaderboards? Like, what age was that? And like, how do you go about your business and make sure that you show up to events, fairly prepared to go?
Yeah, I mean, I think sticking to routine is really the main thing to consistency. I think it's something guys kind of overlook sometimes. I mean, I try to have the exact same routine over every single golf shot I hit, the same routine when I wake up, the same routine when I get to the course. Just kind of get myself as comfortable as I can before going into an event. And that's something I've talked with my swing coach a little bit about for a long, long time, is just developing that routine that creates consistency. And then after that, I mean, it's self-belief and believing that how hard you work is going to produce the product that you want.
So like, let's just dive a little bit into some specifics. Like, for example, like when you're on the range, do you have a very like specific like template, with alignment rods and like checking ball position, or are you kind of like working around the targets? Or are you fairly like, I just block practice, I like to hit the same shot over and over to see predictability? Like, where do you kind of stand on some of that?
Are you talking about like before a round or like when I'm practicing?
Yeah, just like on your, not necessarily before a round, more just like, you're heading into an event maybe next week, and it's like, I just want to make sure I'm like staying on track heading into something.
Yeah, so I gain confidence from practicing probably a little more on time than ability. So I like to put in a lot of hours, because that helps me gain confidence. So, I mean, when I'm on the range, I'm just checking my basics, timing and ball position. And like, I have 2 or 3 tendencies I start to lean towards when I start hitting it a little off. So I just work on those and really develop that. And then I like to play a lot before a round or before a tournament, just really working on scoring your golf ball, because at the end of the day, like, you're not going to go into every event hitting it well. I mean, no one does, maybe Scotty Scheffler, but
yes, I think he does. Yes. Pretty good.
Yeah, like if you go into a round with beat or your C-tier ball striking, like, you need to figure out how to still, help the team and play halfway decent golf and maybe even squeak in the top 10.
Do you feel like when you have your C game basically heading in, and you kind of like adapt a little bit, like you're good at that? I mean, you must be, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I know when I'm hitting it good, and I know when I'm hitting it not so good. I mean, you can figure that out in the practice round pretty quick, but it's just course management is a big factor in that. because I mean, if you're not hitting it good, you need to play away from pins instead of just firing at every one, or else you're going to make, maybe one or two birdies, but you're going to riddle 4 or 5 bogeys off because you're just missing in the wrong spot. So just knowing where to miss it and all that stuff is so important. That's why preparation is key.
Coach, what do you see in that realm of just guy? I mean, you've been around a ton of guys, like guys that seem to, show up week in, week out, fairly prepared versus like these roller coaster kids. It's like, maybe they're going to win an event, but they may not even make the next event.
I think it just goes back to what Jackson was talking about. It's more about how you practice and having a purpose when you practice. And we're constantly preaching to our guys is to be purposeful for everything that you do. Stay true to who you are, be the best version of you, and everybody's a little different, as you know, Andrew. I mean, how you coach them is different, how you teach them is a little different. And I think that it goes back to routines and having a routine off the golf course, having a routine on the golf course, what time they go to bed, what time they get up, being disciplined with their time. And those are the ones, to me, are the most consistent, or at least gives them the best chance to have consistency with their games because they're consistent with their life and they're consistent with their preparations to get ready for a tournament. Whether it be guys that like to play a lot, that score their golf ball, or like Jackson mentioned, he gets confidence off of hitting a lot of golf balls and putting the time into it too. And they're all kind of wired a little bit differently, but ultimately the ones that have the best purpose to what they practice and their preparation are the ones that, to me, they're most successful and the most consistent.
Yeah, that's great. What I see with kids is that the more that they change things based on like day-to-day stuff, for example, let's say like a kid uses, the line on the golf ball and then he has like a bad putting day. Then he's like, I'm not going to do that anymore. Like, I feel like I call it like conviction. Like if someone has a lot of conviction, they don't seem to have the up and downs. Like, yeah, sure, maybe you'll show up to an event like not hitting it that great. But I think the more that you have that conviction, that level of like, I know that this is what works for me. And like, that's been time and tested for a long time. Like, I'm sure, Jackson, you've been doing a lot of the same things, for like the last 5 or 6 years. And it would take a lot for someone to tell you like, hey, don't do that anymore. Like I feel like the kids that go to college, and Coach, you can speak to this, like, what would you say the stumbling blocks are for when they get there, especially if they're not playing well?
I'd say time management, number one, right? Guys got to learn how to manage their time. They got to learn how to have organization in their life, in their golf game, and how they practice and how much sleep they're going to get. I mean, they're living on their own for the first time in their life, and they get to make their own decisions, and they got to do their own laundry, and they get to choose when they eat and when they don't eat. And there's so many factors that go into that transition to college. But, I think, even Jackson, we talked about it today, right? Just continue to learn how to manage your time. And I think you touched on some things, Andrew, with him. Like Jackson has a great swing teacher in Fred Garcia in San Jose. And, his mistakes are always his mistakes. So he stays true to his plan. And it seems like a lot of kids can bounce around sometimes. Like you mentioned, the line works one day, it doesn't work the next day, or they want to switch a putter. They want to do things instead of just sticking to what they plan. And Jackson knows why he gets poor shots, because he's been well taught and well coached.
Jackson, so for those listening, I met Jackson at the USAM. We played the practice round together with Luke. Would you say that day you were like A game, hitting it good, B game, C game? Like how did you feel heading into that?
I felt all right. I mean, I was probably on my B to C. I was hitting it pretty solid going into the USAM. I had some confidence off the Western Am individual stroke play medalist, and I was feeling pretty good. Before Western, or the day of USAM, I just kind of fell under the weather and it kind of wiped me out for Hazeltine. But going in, I just you got to go score your ball, and Chaska, is that it?
Chaska.
Yeah,
yes.
Chaska. And then, Hazeltine's a awesome golf course with its teeth, and there's a reason it hosts so many good tournaments. So you got to go play smart, and you got to hit the ball well out there to score.
I thought you hit your irons very good. I remember Luke and I were walking, and I'd be like, he hits it at the flag every single time. It seemed like, maybe you got a couple toe balls or something with the driver to where it like, and I from my perspective, you were definitely hitting your irons really good, but maybe the driver wasn't as on go as maybe normal. But like the thing that I was so impressed with you, and I want to like dive into it a little bit, is, you didn't really react much to like if you hit a good shot or if you hit a bad shot. And I noticed the same things with Van Paris and then when we played with Gordon Sargent the day before. And I feel like that is a super skill, like to be able to just, you're in the event. There's not a whole lot you can do about it at that moment. Like you just didn't really seem to be too bothered by stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just you got to take those mental notes and what you could have done a little better on that swing and just try to apply it to the next one. You go into a tournament other than before, like if you're actually in the round. And I mean, I tried to do my best to not think about my swing, and when you're swinging it bad, it's hard to. But
that is hard.
It's kind of a talent to just kind of forget about the last shot and move on to the next.
Coach, do you have anything on that? I mean, do you see that a lot with kids? Just one bad shot and they kind of derail, or they just start questioning everything? Like I noticed that with Van Paris a ton, right? Like that day, I mean, he really was hitting it kind of everywhere. Mm-hmm. And his coach, Cody, was like, he'll be fine. Like we were standing there on that par 3 on 17. He's like, he'll find a way. And I think he ended up finishing like 20th in stroke play.
Yeah. Well, I think it just goes back to maturity too, right? Doesn't it? I mean, like these kids grow and they get older and they start to mature and they have a little more peace with their game. They have a little more self-belief with their game. They're just more comfortable in their own skin. They're comfortable in their environment. And I think, some of the younger players, I mean, sometimes it might just be an immaturity thing. And, they just don't really know how to handle adversity yet. They don't know how to handle certain situations because they're not quite as experienced. And that just comes with time. It comes with competing. It comes with time. It comes with being grounded. And again, it goes back to just having a plan. If you got a good plan with your swing coach and you just keep listening and keep executing that plan every day, because your plan's not changing that much. I mean, your tendencies are your tendencies, and just having a plan of become self-reliant over time and just keep learning and keep growing.
Yeah, it's well said. I think that, going back to the conviction, it's also like my blueprints. I think that's the thing I preach the most with these kids is like, you gotta have a plan for like each of your skills. Like, what are my distance wedges like? What's my putting like? How do I like to work on it? How do I dial speed? Like, and the more that you can dial in those things, which Jackson, I did want to talk to you. I know that you're a super incredible putter. And so
yes, he is.
Have you,
yes, he is.
When we were at US Junior, I said like, what's Jackson super skill? He said for sure putting. He said, I think you said he hits it really straight and putting.
Yep.
So have you
decent qualities to have, right?
Yes, I would say so. Yes, especially watching junior golf. So, and again, everyone listening is a junior. So, were you always good at putting? Is that something you developed? Like, was you just making everything since you were like 4?
Yeah, I've always kind of had a knack for putting. When I was younger, I was a little smaller, so I had to be good at putting if I wanted to score. And I think that's kind of where it started. And just growing up, I try to keep it as simple as possible. Kind of use the same model putter for a while now. I like to mess around with putters.
Keep it that way. Keep it that way.
Don't change it.
Don't change it. That was a message today.
Yeah, I think I've got 3 in my bag right now, but I just like looking at them sometimes and just scaring the gamer. But
yeah. Sometimes a little threat's fine. I mean, coach probably does that with the team.
He just lays all these circle tees out in the green, just makes everybody jealous.
Yeah, well, that sounds fun too. I'll give you my address later if you want to, throw me something someday.
But
I'd love to. Yeah, like what do you do? How do you refine the skills?
Yeah, I like to practice making putts. I think a lot of guys just practice on tools a lot, and I mean it's great to be able to have a perfect stroke and all that type of stuff, but like. You need to be able to match your perfect stroke with the speed and the line and knowing the grain and where you want to make in the hole and all that type of stuff. And I think that's kind of something guys could do a little better at. And then I just kind of keep it simple with the drills. I love the T-gate drill, just making sure I'm hitting the center of face. And then I'll just throw some tees in front of it to start line if I need to. And it's kind of it. And then just I like to tell myself before I hit every putt that I'm going to make it and just have a confidence. So there's nothing in my stroke that's kind of second guessing.
That's better than me saying, don't be a little B. Yeah, I may have to change mine because I am tired of missing putts because I'm a little B. Are you a line guy? No line guy?
Big
Have
line
been
guy. I've used.
big line guy. Thank you.
I think it's cheating, but
It's cheating.
it's.
I think aim point's cheating, but that's just me. I think aim point's cheating.
Yeah, there's a lot of putting techniques out there. But
Yeah.
I've never done aim point. It's just all been visual and feel, and I've used a thin black line for probably 9 years now, and don't plan on changing that at all.
Guys, that's conviction. That's exactly. I love that. I mean, I can't stand, honestly, and I'm sure people that I coach are going to listen, but I can't stand when people are blown by the wind on stuff like that. Like, you doing things like that and believing in them, and then like not changing stuff because you have a bad week or something like that. Changing putters, things like that, I think are quick ways to slowly erode confidence.
Right.
You guys are laughing. What did Coach say this to you today? Is this what? Well, that's great. Good job, Coach.
I'm just smiling. Thank you for supporting me.
Man, I mean, I see it all the time, and it's the beginning of a problem. And then eventually you're putting with a lab putter. No offense, lab putters, but like you're just like, I can't putt, and I got to go buy a lab putter. They're not a sponsor. It's fine, but it's like. I love that you like a style of putter. I have 9 mallet center shafted putters. I'm not. Yeah. I mean, I don't think I'd ever change.
I think I probably have 6 of the Fang Scotty Camerons.
Yeah, the Circle T's.
But you use the same one every week.
I mean, they're all the same thing.
That's so funny. I wanted to talk a little bit about Jackson and Coach. You've had some pretty cool experience of being able to go up to the PGA Tour. I know that, going from junior golf, you're playing Elite Am Series. So you showed up to college probably feeling, pretty prepared. Like I play against these guys already, like nothing out of the ordinary. But like, what's it been like going to the PGA Tour and then being able to hang and like, you're right there. Your skills are good enough. You're making cuts. Like, what has that been like, and what has that done to your confidence this last year on top of everything else that happened?
Yeah, so I got my first 2 PGA Tour starts, which was awesome, at the Memorial and the Rocket Mortgage, and it's a lot different, I'd say. Obviously, there's a lot of guys I know that I truly believe could be playing on tour right now, but it's just the mentality of the guys that are on tour. Like, at the end of the day, like, you get on tour and a lot of those guys have the same skill level. It's just all right up here, and who can manage their games the best. And I mean, just the travel for me was tough. Like, I played 2 weeks, and it's like you go, you play, sit in your hotel room, and then go play again and sit in your hotel room. But it's something you kind of got to get used to, because at the end of the day, it is a job. But it's just it's next level maturity from. You get your junior golf maturity, your college golf maturity, and then it's way up there.
Coach, does it surprise you what Luke's doing with Clinton and what Nick Dunlap did and what the guys coming out of college? I mean, even like Carl Phillips or what Kiefer did on Canada this year. I mean, are you at all surprised by this stuff? Or are you just like, no, I knew this was coming?
I wouldn't say I knew it was coming, but it doesn't surprise me at all, because I think the talent level is great. I think college golf system works. I think some of the best facilities in the country are college golf facilities. It's a place for these guys to train and to get better and to grow and mature. And there's so many great college coaches now across the nation, and I think it's just a great breeding ground for the next generation of players. It really is.
From your perspective, Coach, I mean, with what Jackson said, I mean, is it basically what you see too, or do you see anything different? I mean, you've been around a ton of PGA Tour players. Is there something, I mean, besides the mental side of that separates them from a skill standpoint, or is it literally you think a lot of them have the same skill, but they have a way of getting it done?
Yeah, a lot of them do have the same skill set. There's obviously just some abnormalities. There's a couple guys like a Roy McIlroy and things of those nature that do some things that are pretty freaky, right? That a lot of guys can't do. But I would say it goes back to mindset. It goes back to self-belief. At the end of the day, number one predictor of success is going to be self-confidence. And, the guys that have the right mentality, that love to compete, and they look at it as their destiny almost, to play at the elite level and to win on the PGA Tour, to me, those are the guys that have the most success. But I think Jackson hit it on the head too. Like, it's a different lifestyle, and you got to be ready for that lifestyle. You got to be emotionally ready. You got to be mentally ready, prepared to be all that travel, and you play a lot. Like,
Yeah.
like you don't get a lot of chances to practice a ton. Like, you play, you got pro-ams and you got 4 rounds, and then you got to get ready for the next week, and then you get another 4 rounds and get ready for the next week. And, it's a constant, probably internal battle with yourself as a player. And I think that's the difference, is their mindset.
Jackson, do you do statistics and things like that to kind of evaluate your game, or is it more like you kind of know where the main areas of focus need to be?
Yeah, I mean, I did a little bit last year, and this year I haven't as much. And I mean, when you don't play the way you want, you know what it is. Like, I know right now I need to get better from 116 and wedges just need to get better, plain and simple. But that's just something I know. And like, statistics are great; they can show you that if you're unsure. They can show you all your shots and all that stuff. But I try to keep things as simple as I can.
Yeah. The only reason I asked is like, so, you've got 16 accelerated points, right? I'm sure you know that. I'm guessing you know that, right? You're only 3 away from your tour card. Like, when you play out there, are there part of your skills where you're like, man, I think I need to do better at this? Or do you feel like at this point you're in a really good spot with all of your skill stuff? Like, for example, a lot of guys get out there and go, I think I need to hit it maybe 2 or 3 miles an hour faster, or anything like that. Like, did anything like pop out at you?
Yeah, no, I think definitely my driving of the golf ball is good enough. I mean, I don't hit it very far, but I hit it very straight, and that's just something you see a lot of veteran tour guys do. I mean, they hit it straight, and that's what keeps them out
Yeah.
there for so long. I think my long irons are pretty close to where they need to be, but I mean, these guys' wedges are so precise, and their course management is unbelievable. And I do believe my putting is where it needs to be for it, but it's just putting myself in position to use my putter as a weapon is where I need to improve to be able to maintain my PJ Tour card.
But that's awesome. I mean, Coach, I think you nailed it. I mean, I think the reason that these guys like Jackson, like when he's ready to go, and when Gordon goes, and when Luke goes, and Nick, is that Jackson, you've been playing PGA Tour level events. I mean, I'm sure you played junior players at probably like 14 or 15. You've been playing PGA Tour level places, for 5 or 6 years, and like seeing what those golf courses like, seeing what the skills are required, being able to do all those things that you just said, apart from just like hitting the golf ball. I mean, I think that's why I see these guys coming out with so much success. And if I was a 25 to 30-year-old pro, I'd be scared.
Yeah.
Especially the PGA Tour just announced that they're cutting cards. Like this route that you guys are going down it seems to be like the future for sure. And with the PGA Tour U stuff and the accelerated points, do you pay attention to a lot of that stuff? Like when it comes to your schedule and, like if I get 3 more points, if I play more tour events and make the cut, like I get there, or are you just like letting it happen fairly organically?
Yeah. I mean,
he never talks about it. He never talks about it. Sorry.
I mean,
I'm just messing with him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would think it's like, yeah, that's really cool to like think about.
Yeah. I mean, I think as of now, it's kind of just playing decent golf, and I should be able to get it because I get 2 PGA Tour U points from Walker Cup, and hopefully I'll be able to make that team, and then I just need 1 more. But I like to go into the tour events just kind of trying to gain as much experience and knowledge as I can. I mean, I know I can go make a cut and all that stuff, but, just learning from what these guys do that makes them so good is kind of what I value from those events.
Yeah. Do you have another one lined up?
I'm trying to maybe get one in November. But cool. Right now I'm in the Arnold Palmer right now. I got into that. So.
Oh, okay, great. That's awesome.
So
is Coach on the bag?
I have to skip a tournament for it.
Oh, so, no.
Yeah.
No, I'll be in Las Vegas.
Joe, producer. was going to say, producer Joseph is a world-class caddy. So if you need anybody.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, he's very, very good. He loves.
He's auditioning right now.
That's right. I'm sure I'll circle back to some of that stuff, but I wanted to go back to expectations, and expectations in my mind are kind of like two things. And Jackson, I'll start with you. So like, some people will say like, well, I don't want to look at leaderboards, and I don't like to think about the results. But then you have someone like Tiger who basically shows up to an event and says, I'm here to win. And that's his goal. And so I just wonder, with someone like you who's had so much success, and like, when you show up to an event, are you mentally expecting like, if I play good, I'm going to win this thing? Or are you trying to be very process oriented and just not think about that at all?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that if I play to my best capability, I'm going to win every week. But I think at the same time, there's a happy medium for that. And I mean, if I don't believe I can win with my best stuff, then why am I there? Yeah. So that's just kind of the mentality I try to go in with, but just kind of trusting the process and the work I put in. And even if I don't win, that I gave it my all and gave whatever I had of my golf game that week, whether that was the best I had or, the worst I had. Just trying to get the most out of whatever the game I brought was.
Coach, do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, with guys that you've seen?
I just think guys that just constantly try to be the best version of themselves, be the best version of you on a daily basis. And I think the guys that do that have the most success. They don't get caught up in everything else. They just try to be who they are and play to their strengths, because their strengths are always going to be their strengths, and play to their strengths and just trust themselves and believe in themselves and just be the best version of them.
Yeah, that's great. Are you leaderboard watcher, Jackson?
Hey.
Am I?
Either. I mean, yeah, I'm sure you're.
I'm not.
Are you not really? Okay.
No, I don't even look at. I didn't look at golf stat yesterday. We were at Colonial yesterday. I didn't look at golf stat yesterday until we had 2 holes left.
Really? Okay.
I mean, I don't know. Like, what am I going to do about it?
I agree. I 100% agree. Like, what am I? Oh, I'm 4 back. Let's make 4 birdies. Like, yeah, I mean, with that north wind yesterday, that was probably fun.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not a big leaderboard watcher. I just enjoy helping these young players develop and grow and learn about their games.
Jackson, where are you on that?
Oh, I love to watch the leaderboard.
Do you really?
I like to know exactly where I am and what I have to do.
How early into an event? Like after 9 holes, after the day one, right off the bat?
Probably after 9 holes is when I'll check.
Okay.
I mean, I just want to know how guys are doing. If I'm playing well, if I think course playing hard, I'm playing well, and guys are still tied with me, then I guess. So
at Inverness, you knew you were doing pretty well after 9 holes. Yeah.
I was probably only like 4 under, and I think I checked, and there was probably someone at 2. So.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Only a 2-shot lead after 9 holes.
But I like to know. I like to know exactly where I'm at.
I think that's part of the conviction that, some people, they do it and it's super helpful, and somehow that like channels them. And then other guys, like Coach was saying, like just stick to the process, and it's not going to necessarily affect my strategy or my game plan. But I love that you like to look at it. I tend to not play so well when I know where I am. So actually, when I was playing an event the last 2 days, we were winning with 3 holes to go on day 1, and we bogeyed the last 3 holes. So I don't have it, Coach. So but I don't have any eligibility. But if I did, no, I strictly belong on the coaching front. Now,
so do I.
Yeah, and that's fine. I enjoy watching much more than playing these days. Now, you guys were talking earlier about the other expectation, and that's kind of the expectation of. I mean, you guys just had. You're national champions. You got the super cool rings. You're on the football field. And like, how has that changed the team dynamic heading into this year? And I'm sure, Coach, like you're very aware of that was last year. Like that is not this year. And how do we manage the expectations of this team and others around us that's going to hopefully not influence us?
I mean, I've reminded the guys on multiple occasions, and JK can tell you that we're not defending anything because last year's last year and this year's a new year. And we did have our last, championship celebration last Friday night and Saturday, and we actually didn't even, we flew private out Sunday morning to Colonial, but I'm actually glad all that's over.
Are
now.
you?
Finally, all the celebration stuff over, and we can move on to this season and just stay grounded and stay humble. And we got to work hard, and everything in life is earned. We got to go earn it, and we got to keep getting better. And we got a great culture and great team, but we know we got to play better too.
Jackson, how do you handle not only the expectations you put on yourself, but I mean, I'm sure you're getting pulled in a lot of directions these days. Like, how do you stay grounded? Like Coach was saying, has that been tough, or has that been easy? Do you have guys around you that have good advice for you on that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely get plenty of good advice. It's hard not to put expectations on myself. I think those are the ones that weigh me down the most. And I'm learning that quickly. I haven't had the best past 2 weeks, and I'd just say just going back to the basics of life, like just keeping everything simple. Your practice routine, all that type of stuff, your life routine, class, all that stuff it's easy to kind of get away from you. And I think as long as I keep everything in order in my life, golf will definitely take care of itself, and I'll continually progress as a player.
Coach, I want to jump a little bit into recruiting. Especially I'm assuming that with the year that you had last year, that recruiting for this 2026 class has been pretty good. And you in general probably get to pick some pretty good players from across the country. So one, a lot of the kids that listen are going through this process. So one, what would your advice be in the recruiting process? And then two, just in general, and then two, what really separates for you, who you're ultimately going to choose, especially if the golf skills are fairly, level, it's not that big of a difference.
Yeah, I mean, I think to answer your second question first, I mean, we're looking, obviously I think anybody's looking for high character kids, high integrity, great students, just kids that have passion for the game, that just really want to work at it and love golf, and they love to compete, right? So a lot of those intangibles that you really can't teach is that competitive energy, that competitive fire, and just love for the sport. I think that really carries you. I think that'll serve you well in college too, if you really, really love the game. And that's something that Jackson does, right? I mean, you don't have to tell him to do certain things. You just got to kind of, ring him in a little bit and make sure he's managing his time well and being purposeful with his practice. But I think those are big qualities off the golf course that you got to look for in a recruit. And I think that your first question, I would say that we're just that we're constantly just trying to develop these young people, and we're trying to develop them as much off the golf course as we are on the golf course. And and I think that recruiting is always hard. Listen, you're going up against a lot of great programs, a lot of great coaches throughout the entire nation, and it's never easy. It's never just picking certain players, but obviously Auburn has a lot to offer, and so does a lot of other places. And we just try to find the right fits for us and that fit that locker room and that drive the culture, and hopefully we'll produce some good golf along the way too.
Have you refined or changed your process of how you basically evaluate everything you just said? Was it a lot different, 10 years ago versus now?
The recruiting's changed. I think the whole thing's changed a little bit. I think it was probably, I wouldn't say easier 10 years ago, but it definitely is different now. I think not that the kids are different, but I think the whole system's different, especially if this house settlement goes through and we have roster caps. And, obviously I think, my advice for junior golfers would be don't panic as you go through the recruiting process. Find the right fit for you. Find the right fit for you academically, athletically, spiritually, socially. Find what's best for you, somewhere you can prosper, somewhere you can grow, not only as a golfer, but also as a human being. And whether that be a college town or a big city or whatever it may be, but find the right fit for you. And I think you'll love it, you'll embrace it, and you'll have success too.
Jackson, when you were going through the recruiting process, obviously you chose Auburn and you love Coach. Like what were the things that you were really important to you that you like used to help make that decision that you think maybe would be helpful for some kids to hear? Because I mean, I'm sure you had, pick of the litter. Not everyone has that, but how did you ultimately like make your decision?
Yeah, I took an unofficial visit and just didn't want to leave, and that kind of sealed my deal for me. But
sold.
things I kind of look for is just good bonding with the coach to start, and good team atmosphere, good team chemistry, and obviously somewhere where I knew I could get better. I mean, we have 5 golf courses we can all go play, and they're all close, and the facility is 5 minutes from campus. I mean, how much easier can you get than
That's
that?
nice. I feel like the one thing I always hear from people is like, how far is the golf course from campus?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Coach, you brought up the roster limits. I don't even know where to go other than a lot of people don't know that there is potential that, the NCAA is going to start changing, the roster limits on golf to be somewhere in the 9-person realm, which right now, I mean, there's multiple teams that have, double-digit people that are, if that happens, they're going to have to definitely, cut some guys off the team. So what do you think? Like, are you a fan of what's about to happen potentially? Do you think it's a bad idea? Where are you at with all of this?
Well, I'm a fan of them telling us what the rules are, and then we'll go play by them.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of living in a hypothetical world where, we kind of really have no idea what's going on. Like, we don't know what the roster number is. We don't know how many scholarships we have. I'm hoping that something eventually gets done sooner rather than later when it comes to this. But am I a fan of it? I mean, probably not. I mean, I'm not a big fan of taking opportunities away from young people. And we've talked for the last 25 years about giving opportunities to people and about student athlete welfare. And here we are getting ready to take opportunities away. And I think the data, and I may be wrong, but I think the data shows that if you go to 9, hypothetically, that 65 players have 65 less opportunities in the Power 4 conferences or the Automatic 4 conferences. So you're talking about taking away a lot of opportunities for young people to attend schools that they may dream about attending. And I think that's, in my opinion, I think that's unfortunate.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems, from my perspective, it's really, really good. I mean, and you guys you don't really know. But
we don't know.
You almost have to act as if it's going to happen, because the last thing you want to do is, take too many 25s or 26s, and then you have to basically say, well, we made a mistake and you can't do this. I mean, is that
exactly?
Is that where I mean, you talk to all these guys. Is that what they're basically doing?
I mean, I think that's the situation that we're all in as coaches. We're sitting in chairs. We don't really have any idea what's going on, and we're just trying to follow the lead from our leadership, which has done a fabulous job for me. But I think across the nation, we just need closure. And I'm hoping that it's tied up in attorneys and it's tied up in the courts. So who knows exactly what's going to happen, but it sure would be nice to know exactly what we're working with. Right now we don't, which is pretty unfortunate. It's unfortunate for us, and it's unfortunate for the players too.
Man, it's hit really close to home, because I have some guys in the 25 class who are very good players who really thought they were going to end up going to, XYZ school. And it has just been, very, very tumultuous for them. I mean, this recruiting process they've been doing this since last June. It's 15 months and they still don't know. And it's, I get concerned because, unless you're a top recruit, I mean, a lot of coaches don't get out and watch players. Like, they don't have the budget or whatever. And so it really does become just like, well, we're going to take the highest ranked kid we can. And if you have a bad event, it's almost like the opportunity is totally gone. So I agree with you. I don't think I'm not a huge fan of it. I mean, I have a son who's going to be going through this next year, and he's not a top recruit. So it's like, man, the reality of dealing with that is very, very stressful, I think, on both ends.
It is. I agree with you. I think it is stressful on both ends. And that's the number one question you're getting from recruits, right? Is how many spots do you have? What's the roster cap law? And it's unfortunate, because I think developing players, which you do so well, right? But developing players and taking a guy that you might get that may not be the guy that's going to contribute his first year or second year, but might turn out to be an All-American type player.
Yeah.
I don't know if are those days over. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
I
mean, and obviously with the transfer portal, I'm not sure if you're like big portal guy. You stare at the portal all day.
I'm not. But I mean, I don't
I
look at it.
that.
I haven't looked at it in probably 2 months. But
yeah,
I
think
never say never. But
the new like thing is, well, I'll just go to a smaller school and I'm gonna go in the portal. Like that seems to be like the most common thing. But I say all the time to these guys. I mean, I coach a bunch of guys who play pro golf. And they didn't go to big time schools. It's like unless you're accelerate onto the tour, most guys are going to Q school, right?
Yep.
And at the end of the day, once you graduate and it's time to go peg it at Q school, it doesn't matter where you went to school, right?
Nope.
So
it doesn't.
I think you're 100% right that you just need to go somewhere where you're going to be able to play and be a good fit, and you're going to get better, So in that respect,
if your mindset's right, you're going to get better, and you're going to get pushed, and you get challenged from your teammates and your coaches, and get encouraged and inspired, and you got to go where you're a good fit culturally.
Yeah.
And you got to go somewhere where you can have a great social life, because at the end of the day, like when you're 18 to 22, that's healthy. Yeah. Like you want to have a great social life, and when they're happy, they play better golf. And you got to go somewhere that has the right values, the right core values, the right moral values. Just go somewhere where it's the right fit, and you're going to prosper and grow. I truly believe that.
Yeah. I can tell that you live that. You've said a lot of those same words. I'm sure Jackson, he says a lot of that stuff.
I do.
A lot. Yeah. That's great. I mean, that's what makes a great coach. I mean, very, very well rounded.
It gets probably pretty monotonous to them. It gets monotonous to them, but I think they understand what the vision is, and they understand what the values are.
Yeah. Well, that's better than me. I just yell at the kids when they don't play well. So. Well, I mean, I can get fired. So, I got a producer. Yeah, it's not going to be good. You guys have been incredibly generous. I just want to ask a couple more questions, and then Jackson, you can go do your homework. Or maybe you like doing this, so you don't have to go do your homework. I did not like doing homework. So I would look for any excuse not to do homework. So, like I said, a lot of our listeners are junior golfers who are just trying to get better. And, Jackson, you played a ton of junior golf. I mean, you probably played a lot against a lot of good players, but I'm sure you played with some not so great players. And Coach, you watch a ton of junior golf. So Jackson, you can go first on this one. What would be your advice, if you're at a clinic and you're talking to junior golfers about like, these are the things that you really, really should focus on to improve and to lower those scores as quickly as possible? Like, what do you see? And even in college, like with some of the maybe lesser players that you play with, like, what would you say, like from a skill standpoint, like people need to get better at?
I mean, just for starters, just keeping the ball in play. There's no point in wasting shots, just routine or anything like that. I think that's so important, is just accuracy. And then after that, it's just, hitting as many greens as possible, even if it's 30 feet. Like, your odds are a lot better from 30 feet than short-sided in a bunker. And then just pick your battles. I mean, you're going to have, let's say you go play an average college course at 7,200 yards. You're going to have four par fives, probably at least three. 4 par fives, at least 3 of them should be reachable. So you got your 3 birdies holes there, 4 including the other, and then you're going to have 4 to 6 wedges, and then you got your tough holes, and you can take a bogey or 2 on that. And I mean, it's just kind of mapping out how you play the golf course and playing it smart and playing to your strengths.
What would you tell the guys about short game? For example, can you be pretty one-dimensional short game? I mean, do you feel like you need to have like a large shot selection? Like, do you see that as like necessary on the type of courses you guys play?
Yeah, I mean, I think I see both. There's definitely guys that get a little bit more creative around the greens, and there's guys who are great short game players who are pretty one-dimensional. And there's some courses where you might need to be a little more creative when the rough's thick and the greens are firm, but for the most part, it's just kind of keeping it simple, making good contact, and being able, just knowing what your golf ball is going to do when it hits the green is pretty important for the short game aspect.
Yeah, for sure. Coach, what would you say about all that? I mean, you watch you've seen a ton of golf, right?
Yeah. I mean, I would echo a lot of the same things, but I think junior golfers need to constantly work on the 4 different physical areas of the game to try to enhance their skill. I love it. One of them's putting, and one of them's distance wedging. obviously ball striking, and then I lump all the other ones kind of, pitching, chipping, and bunker play all in one category. And I think the more they can separate those four things and work on those four things and having a plan. I will say that, the elite players, in my opinion, in the PGA Tour as well, is a ball striking tour. The best players are the best ball strikers. And so I think having a good teacher and a good coach that can help you be self-reliant and understand, what works for you and what doesn't work for you, and whether you should be drawing it or fading it or whatever your swing type is biased towards. I think that could be very, very helpful too. And then I'd get down there as a young player. I'd get down there and hit bunker shots. I'd hit pitches. I'd hit off tight lies. I'd learn into the grain shots. I would throw balls into the rough. I would practice on the golf course if my golf course would let me. I'd go out there and hit some drivers and throw balls around the green and try to get them up and down. I think just learning, different shots around the green, the highs and the lows and the draws and the fades, I think that can be very beneficial in your development, especially as a young player and trying to become a really, really good putter. I think there's a lot of artistry there and a lot of creativity that needs to happen there too. I see so many players just trying to make a perfect putting stroke, and I'm not saying that doesn't help you, because having face awareness and good path and everything can help, but ultimately it's much more than that too. And be competitive. Compete in every arena of your life. It'd be the classroom or the golf course or practice or whatever it may be. Just compete.
Jackson, I forgot. I have to ask 2 questions. Are you a Sam Putt Lab guy? Like, do you do that every so often, or have never done that?
I've done it maybe 3 times.
Okay.
So
the numbers are really good, by the way.
Oh, I'm sure they are. And
really
have you? This is for my own personal, just fancy. Have you ever done 3D on your full swing?
I don't know what that is.
That's awesome. Thank you for saying that. I have some. We can talk about it after. I have some, some thoughts on all of that. Mainly around like, that's the kind of stuff I see like when guys go further and like they start doing things that they really have never done, and that starts almost like creating doubt and cloud of like, well, you don't do this well in your 3D data relative to blah blah, and it's just a mess. So I encourage you to stay in your lane as much as you can, because your lane is heading in a good direction. So like, why muddy it with anything else other than that? Last question, then we can definitely wrap this up. So kind of the same question, but to parents. There's a lot of parents listening. What would be your advice? Jackson, I'm sure you have, parents that were incredibly, helpful and supportive. Like what would be your advice to parents from the player perspective, and then coach from you? What do you see as like downfalls and versus like really supportive parents? What's that role look like? Jackson, why don't you go first?
One I see downfall in kids when parents get mad about bad play. Now, like none of us want to play bad. Like, we're not going out there and trying to shoot 85, but what helped me is my parents told me that they'll never get mad at me for playing bad. It's just if I act like a child on the golf course, that's when they'll start getting upset. Like if I throw a club, like I'm never going to see that club again from them. That type of stuff, and that's the stuff that creates maturity. And but it kind of makes me sad when I see parents getting upset at their kid for playing bad golf. Even like they're trying their hardest to play good. Like, believe me, I've been there.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest downfall I see in parenting in junior golf.
Coach, do you see that as a pretty big red flag in the recruiting process?
I think the first thing I'll tell you is that the parents need to be supportive. They need to be encouraging. They need to really, just really try to instill confidence in their young people, whether it be guys or girls. And I think that's their number one job, and give them resources to be successful. Find them a good teacher, find them a good coach, whether it be a local pro or whoever that can really help and enhance their game and teach them the game of golf to play at a high level. And, I think it can be, I think, hard to watch sometimes when the kid, hits a bad shot and looks straight at his mom or straight at his dad, like just to see their reaction, or hits a good shot and looks straight at them to see if it's validated. as well. Because the kids listen. As a parent myself, I want, obviously all parents, we want our kids to be happy and we want them to chase their dreams and not for me to live my dreams out through my kids.
Yeah. Yeah. I have the pleasure of, dealing with lots of parents. So I'm sure you have as well in your careers. So, well, guys, I appreciate so much you guys being on here. Everything you had to say is incredibly valuable, and I know that our listeners will get a lot out of it. Best of luck on the season, and heading, not that you're defending, but as you head toward another national championship, hopefully. And we'll definitely be plugging the socials so guys can follow you, and especially with you, Jackson, with what everything's going on to kind of follow your career. So huge fans. We all are here, and just totally wish you the best for this next year. And thanks for being on. Honestly, it's been,
Thank you guys.
I was so happy you guys did this. So, all
Very
right.
appreciative. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks.
Andrew Lewis, how's it going, man?
Hey, Jim. I'm doing good, man.
This is Angle of Attack with Andrew Lewis. Good to see you. Hey, this is episode 28. We had just listened to the conversation with Coach Clinard and Jackson Koivun. That was a fantastic interview with them. A great get by producer Joseph, by the way.
That guy's the man. He's a living legend.
But one of the things I wanted to dig in a little bit deeper here, you guys talked about the recruiting landscape. Obviously, Auburn coming off the national championship, winning the SEC, they sort of have the pick of their litter in terms of recruits. But Coach Clinard did talk about the changes in the landscape with the NCAA settlement, the potential pending roster limits, and one thing that he quoted in the episode, I think he said that they counted like 65 roster spaces in the Power 5 conferences are set to be displaced if they end up moving to 9. And this has ripple effects going through junior golf, going through 2025 recruits that have already verbally committed last year thinking they had a spot. They may not have a spot. I think that we're getting pretty close to signing day pretty soon. I don't know what those conversations are, but if I was a 50th ranked 2025 kid, I might be a little nervous. And then, we're right in the mix of the 2026 class. And I think it is having a dramatic impact on that class as well. So I know that you're very close to this with clients that you have. Like, I just want to get a general sense of what's the dynamic like? Like, what are the conversations? Like, are people stressing out? Are they freaking out? What's your conversation both with the kids and their parents?
I think the general consensus is with the 2025 class is that it just isn't going like how they would have thought probably before all of this started. I have multiple clients who definitely deserve to be going to a really good school for golf, and it's just not necessarily panning out quite yet. Because the coaches say the same thing. If we had XYZ amount of space, we would totally take you. But this idea that we can have like a project or someone that is an alumni or anything like that. That kind of thing happens all the time. That's frankly just not going to happen anymore. Which I think is both good and bad. It's good in that a lot of kids that end up going to schools like that just don't play. So if you're the 10th or 11th kid and you go, let's just say, to the University of Texas, you may not play if you're not, the 6th or 7th best guy. So, in that respect, it's good. But then it's not great because, if you've dreamed of going there, maybe you don't care about playing. You just want to go be on the team. Then, that opportunity is pretty much done. So I see it as kind of a half dozen of one and a half dozen of the other. So, what Coach Clinard had said is, this idea that you have to find the good fit. So I think it's also like forcing kids to redefine what that means, and it really comes down to a place that wants me and that I think I'm going to be able to play. Because the other dynamic that's now happening is like, okay, let's say I go to this place, if I'm not playing well the first year, I really think the likelihood of getting cut from the team is much, much higher than years past. Because one, they're going to load up with juniors, and then two, the transfer portal is going to go crazy. And we can definitely dive into what I think about the transfer portal, but it really is affecting these kids, and it hasn't even like officially passed. That's kind of the crazy thing. Like I think it's only going to get a little bit worse.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think I wanted to explore this a little bit further because I think that there's going to be some collateral damage, like some shock to the system, but then also like a parallel shift of what college golf ends up looking like once the dust settles. And I think we've got juniors and parents in this age group that are just kind of caught in the middle of this, right? And it becomes very, very difficult to navigate. Do you have a sense that like parents are well informed, educated on this, or do you feel like they're just kind of throwing their hands up?
I think parents are throwing their hands up. I mean, I probably talk to 2 or 3 parents a week of just like there's in this whole world there is so much effort like that parents and players do with so little return. I mean, the amount of emails or trying to create relationships with literally no reciprocation is just a beating, and it is a really, really hard process. And it is only getting worse. As far as like this whole dynamic, I don't think a lot of people know what's going on or understand it. So I think us talking about it is good. It's very real, and it is affecting the recruiting. And it's like you said, it's the ripple effect. So like when the 20th ranked kid in the state is not able to go to a good school, now the 50th kid is not now going to the school they would have thought. Where all of those kids deserve to go somewhere, but it's, if you're going off of years past, like what those kids used to get as far as like the quality of the program, it's just not the same right now. And in coaches' defense, a lot of them are just standing still because it's not official. They don't know. And until that word comes down, they can't really make a decision. So in their defense, they're probably like staying still for the most part, going, why would I take another kid if I already have, 11 committed?
Yeah. Plus those that maybe have spots, they're really, I think, going to be looking to the portal for some of these top programs that are oversubscribed, right?
Yeah. So I think that's the other thing that you got to remember, that these college coaches, this is their livelihood. Like they need to put the best team forward. And I just would not blame them for taking a 2-year college kid, who's been gaining all this experience from a really good program versus a really good junior. Like you could argue that person is matured more. They understand the process. And so I think that's what you're going to see happen, is that there's going to just be less spots in the 2026 and 2027 class. Like they're going to take maybe one because they're probably going to be able to load up in the portal, which again, I don't blame. I mean, I have a 2027 son who is definitely on the fringe of all this, and I'm definitely thinking about, what this is going to look like. And I've already kind of changed my expectation of the schools that we would initially reach out to, and like what that redefining kind of what that best fit is, which is, I mean, that's all you can do. Doesn't mean you shouldn't reach out to the dream schools and the ones that you go to. You never know. Maybe that coach, really wants you. But, I do think you have to adjust your expectations a little bit.
Yeah, I actually wanted to go there. So let's talk a little bit about like where the dust is going to settle, because it sounds like as a parent, you can be proactive to that. Like you start making preparations and decisions that's sort of pointing towards where the dust is going to settle if you have some good foresight. So let's talk about that. Like, where do you see this all shaking out in terms of like what's the college golf landscape going to look like, say, 4 or 5 years from now?
I mean, there's flat out just going to be less kids at the big programs, right? If it's just 9, so now you're basically taking away, like you said, 65, 70. What's going to happen is it's all going to move down. Just like in college football, there's going to be what NIL has done to college football. That's basically what's going to happen to college golf. In I don't say lesser programs, lower ranked programs are going to become more competitive because they are going to be getting stud players that they normally wouldn't get because they're frankly just available. On top of, I think the transfer portal is going to continue to blow up. I don't really know like how the transfer portal works like quite right now. But I think every year you're going to have guys similar to college football that are leaving after 1 year because they're not getting playing time, or they have hints that they're going to be booted off the team much, much faster. So, I guess in summary, there's going to be less spots and more movement, I think, is kind of where this is going to go.
I think one other interesting thing you might see is a transfer portal being used by kids that are picking, say, a second-tier school that then establish themselves as being deserving and proving that they can play for one of these top teams. Like And I think one of the things that could come out of this, if parents and players are proactive around this, is I think these second tier schools are going to end up defining themselves on their ability to develop players. I think you see this in football, or you're starting to see this in football as well. Instead of like lamenting the rules and lamenting how you're losing your star players, like use that as like, hey, this guy came here, he got to play right away, played for 2 years, lowered his scoring average, and he went on to do bigger and better things. So I think you might see some of these smaller schools like really compete on development track record and practice facilities, and then also like the cultural fit if a kid ends up wanting to stay there for 4 years. So I think that's maybe the thing, is to start, like you said, broadening your scope in terms of schools that you're looking at, but looking at those very, very specific things, like how good is the course that they play, how good are their practice facilities. It might be a smaller school, but it might be located and they have access to a very, very nice private country club with a beautiful practice facilities. You got to look at all those little things, and maybe a school that you wouldn't consider before should be squarely under your radar.
Yeah, 100%. And a lot of these, second tier or lower ranked teams, they play in good events. So if you go to one of those schools, I mean, I think choosing a school, if you are looking at some different ones, of what their competitive schedule is huge. Like I know that there's a couple programs that aren't great, but they get into some of these incredible tournaments against these SEC and Big 12 schools, to where if you were to go and play well, I mean, it's not like they're not going to recognize that you're from XYZ school. But I don't know why I said XYZ twice. You should edit that out. But like that, you're definitely going to make a name for yourself. It doesn't really matter what school you're from, as long as you play good golf. Like someone's going to know, just like in junior golf.
Yeah, that's a good point. So let's shift gears as we wrap up this episode. But like, how about just like in the now, like this disruption is putting pressure on the system. It's influencing all types of decision making. What tournament to select, the pressure to perform, because now, I'm trying to prove myself to this coach that I can play at this level where they may be a little bit lukewarm on me. That sort of thing. Like, what do you see on that, and like what advice would you give to someone in that situation?
I mean, I think this really comes down to your process, and the process of a junior golfer is very, very broad. And so let's just take like an event. Like I think the first thing you have to ask is like, should I even be playing in this event? And that there's a lot of metrics that go into that. Do you play that golf course well? Do not go to a golf course that you don't play well historically. If you're looking at it from a ranking standpoint, a lot of colleges that aren't in the state of Texas that are not going to watch you are really going to look at your ranking. So like, is this a good boost for my ranking? Is the course rating good? And is it a decent field where, someone's not going to like lower the rating? I think that's probably where I would start. Let's assume that those things are good. Then I don't think you need to do anything out of the ordinary as far as like your prep. I mean, you have to trust that the process that you do heading into every event should be the same. It's not like you need to do 3 lessons and do 4 practice rounds. I think sometimes we can put a little bit of an excessive amount of effort into something to where you do feel like more pressure. But if you're making logical decisions and you're doing through your normal prep, you're doing your practice round, doing your yardage book, doing all that stuff that you normally do, I think you just have to trust that I'm going to go out and play well. I've seen that kids play almost better when they have like a coach watching them or feel a little bit more pressure. But don't set yourself up for failure by, traveling halfway across the country to play different grass on a course you don't know with weather you don't know. If you don't absolutely need to do that, start playing some places that you think you can show up and play well because you have before. Like I'd get really specific and really like detailed with my schedule. Like do not play a ton and choose stuff that you have a good likelihood of playing well.
Yeah. So there is a lot of importance on the rankings, for better, for worse. We talked about Tugger in the last episode, and Junior Golf Scoreboard is sort of the king, and it has its quirks and its nuances and stuff. And I think you have to get well versed on that with scores rolling off and these upward and downward adjustments, as you mentioned. Yes, it is very, very important. But if you make it the be all end all and you obsess over it, it might cause you actually to make a suboptimal decision. So I think the things you can control around setting yourself up for success in an event. Prepping, like you said, following your process, I think is really important. And like you said, there should be opportunities for you if you're a good player.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Andrew. Well, I really appreciate the time. I know folks, if they have any questions on this, is a very hot topic, very timely topic. I think reach out to you at Andrew Lewis Golf on Instagram. I'm sure you'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, for sure. Always. Yeah, definitely reach out.
All right, thanks. See ya.
Okay, see ya.
The Driven Golf Podcast is produced by Joseph K. If you like this episode, like it, subscribe, pass it on to a friend who might be interested. It really helps us out a lot. We'll be back in a couple weeks with the next episode. Until then, remember, in this great game, the journey is the gift. Enjoy the journey.
We ain't defending nothing. Our steps are lined and calculated. Clinard whispered in our ear, leave the past evacuated. This pressure's heavy, but we're built for this. No hesitating. Freshman flexing through dimensions, breaking through what's gated. The crown don't fit forever. It's awake, it's just for seasons. It's survival in the jungle. Every step is made with reason. War ego lifted higher. Hit a cry across the region. Most boasts with ghosts. Our legacy steady breathing. We're not caught up in the past, that prison's for the timid. Auburn looking forward, yeah, we hungry, stay committed. All those wins and them rings written, but not setting limits, keeping score. The Tigers roar, this hunger's never finished. Fighting through the struggle, fighting through the grind. The Tigers never rest, the future's where we fly. Time to spread your wings, ascend up to the sky. No crown will hold us down, Auburn's rising every time. Fighting through the struggle, fighting through the grind. The Tigers never rest, the future's where we fly. Time to spread your wings, ascend up to the sky. No crown will hold us down, Auburn's rising every time. I ain't scared of the fall, I know the clouds where I define. Every swing a metaphor, I carve the path in every line. Clinard told me you got time, but time to wait, you gotta grind. So I focus on the greens, but the future's in my mind. Jackson's vision sharp like the angles in a diamond. Pressure's just a fire where my iron's redefining. War eagle in my veins, I ain't sweating past assignments. Victory's a ghost, it's the mission that's reminded. 7 wins in the bag, but tomorrow's where we aim. Every tiger in the jungle knows we chasing bigger gains. Koivun swing is sacred, every stroke is pure flame. Clinard said don't defend it, just evolve inside the game. Fighting through the struggle, fighting through the grind. The Tigers never rest, the future's where we fly. Time to spread your wings, ascend up to the sky. No crown will hold us down, Auburn's rising every time. Fighting through the struggle, fighting through the grind. The Tigers never rest, the future's where we fly. Time to spread your wings, ascend up to the sky. No crown will hold us down, Auburn's rising every time. Fighting through the struggle, fighting through